Okay, good evening, everybody. I think we're going to get started. My name is Justin Cartwright. I'm the Director of Government Relations at the New York State Department of State. I'm joined by Dave Mossberg, who is our program attorney, also at the Department of State. This is our second public hearing on creating a cease and desist zone in the borough of Brooklyn. I would like to introduce the New York State Secretary of State, Robert J. Rodriguez, to kick things off.
Thank you, Justin, and good evening, everyone. I'm Secretary of State Robert Rodriguez, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the public hearing held by the Department of State. Thank you all for taking time out of your evenings to be with us and to add input in this very important process and to make sure that all voices are heard as part of this open and public process. So the focus of the hearing is to examine whether homeowners in Kings County are being subjected to intense and repeated solicitations from real estate brokers, salespeople, or others who are regularly engaged in buying and selling of real estate. Late last year, Governor Hochul signed a law requiring the Department of State to hold a public hearing, investigate property solicitation, and determine whether the borough should become a cease and desist zone. So our purpose for being here is to hear from members of the community who have requested to testify, and any others, for that matter, who may want to participate in this hearing. Written testimony and any other supporting evidence can also be accepted by the Department of State here tonight. To many of the fine gentlemen and women who are in the back wearing their shirts. The department will also leave open the record to allow for those who have evidence but either just are not here this evening, or those who are unsure about speaking in public, to still be able to submit evidence either online and make other statements to the department later. We'll be accepting any additional comments and evidence until the end of the month, June 30th. With that said, momentarily we're going to hear from all of you about what you may be experiencing as it relates to aggressive and or predatory outreach and solicitation inquiries as property owners. So in terms of the process, based on the information that we obtain tonight and in our investigative findings, if there is sufficient cause, there may be one or more cease and desist zones covering impacted areas in Brooklyn established. So just let me share briefly what this means for you and how you can engage in this process. As a homeowner, if a zone is created, you may add your name to a cease and desist list by registering on the Department of State website or by requesting and completing a registration form. These lists are updated monthly. And if a homeowner is added to the list, it'll become unlawful for salespeople, brokers, or others who regularly engage in buying or selling real estate from soliciting a property listing from you. So with that said, the most important part is really hearing from all of you. So with that, we'll start this evening's hearing, and thank you all for your preparation, and I'll send it back over to Justin and Dave Mossberg and the team to give a rundown of the hearing and how the evening will proceed. But again, thank you for your time and your consideration on this very important issue.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So we'll begin. I will call each speaker individually. If you could keep your comments to 3-4 minutes, that would be appreciated. If you have not signed up to speak, please sign up in the back. If you do have any evidence that you think would be worthy of us reviewing, please drop it off as well. One other thing I'd like to mention is we are live streaming this, so if you could speak soft or slowly and clearly so that it is picked up through the live stream, that would be great as well. I would like to first invite Lacey Tober from the Brooklyn Borough President's Office to welcome us as well.
Hi everyone. On behalf of Borough President Reynoso, I want to welcome you all to the People's House, Borough Hall, and to thank you for coming here and holding this hearing at Borough Hall in person with these folks. This is a very important issue for the borough president, and so we appreciate you taking this time. He wants to thank, Governor Hochul for signing the legislation requiring these hearings, and the borough president is very supportive of establishing a zone to cover the entire borough in order to curb the practice of harassment for good. This issue is not new. It is once again capturing our attention as the housing market heats up in the borough post-pandemic. A recent report from StreetEasy showed that homes in the city are selling at the fastest rate in 6 years, and Realtor.com reports that the median selling price for homes in Brooklyn was $870,000 in April 2022, which is a $285,000 jump from January of 2020. In this hot market, real estate flippers, developers, and scammers are preying on homeowners. This is a problem throughout the borough, but it's particularly an issue for seniors living in neighborhoods of color. The Center for New York City Neighborhoods reports that the largest percentage, 36%, of the calls they have received from homeowners reporting real estate scams since 2020 came from Brooklyn, and that Black homeowners were 4 times more likely to call them to report a scam than white homeowners. The VP and his team have only been in this office since January, but already we've assisted constituents from Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Prospect Lefferts Gardens, who have dealt with harassment from real estate agents as well as possible deed fraud. These are all gentrifying communities with long-standing Black populations, and all of the impacted constituents were seniors. One reported constant harassment from real estate agents, and another even said that a senior on her block had a real estate agent show up at her door with a cake as a bribe to initiate a conversation about selling her home. It's true that not every potential buyer is attempting fraud. However, many do take advantage of seniors to sell their homes for significantly under market value. The resulting loss of generational wealth is a racial justice issue that must be proactively addressed. The borough president wants to thank District Attorney Gonzalez and Attorney General James for their leadership on this issue. Our office feels confident referring constituents to their offices to get the help they need. But the scale of this issue is such that it's time to take broader action by designating the whole borough as a cease and desist zone. We know now which neighborhoods are hotspots, but the borough is constantly changing, and we should be proactive about protecting the next hot neighborhood from speculators. Additionally, a program like this is only as good as awareness and enforcement. On a large scale, creating awareness of the program becomes more challenging, particularly reaching seniors, those without reliable internet access, and the language isolated. So rather than having an opt-in requirement that would need extensive outreach and education to be effective, properties should be placed onto the list by default with an opt-out option for those who are looking to sell. Additionally, any new designation must come with significant funding to ensure adequate enforcement measures. Thank you again for taking the time here today, and the borough president looks forward to partnering with your office on implementing this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we will call Michael Barbosa, the Assistant Attorney General in charge of Brooklyn.
Good evening. On behalf of the Office of New York State Attorney General, I'm Michael Barbosa. I'm the Assistant Attorney General in the Brooklyn Regional Office. Thank Secretary of State Robert Rodriguez and Governor Hochul for convening this hearing. Thank Borough President Reynoso for hosting it. I would also like to thank all elected officials here today and virtually who sponsored the legislation and supported it to lead to this important hearing. I'm here because Attorney General James supports the establishment of a broad non-solicitation zone within Brooklyn. She's represented Brooklyn in some capacity for almost 20 years, and in that time, she's received consistent complaints from constituents throughout the borough about aggressive, unwelcome solicitation of residential homeowners by individuals seeking to purchase their home or making other related offers. This type of aggressive behavior is a cause for concern not only because it's a tool to expedite gentrification and interferes with residents' quiet enjoyment of their homes, but this type of solicitation is more problematic because it facilitates deed theft and other scams perpetrated by against homeowners. Our office has received reports of individuals who approach homeowners whom they know may be experiencing financial distress and these offers of refinancing or other too good to be true opportunities. These fraudsters prey in a particular way against particular communities, elderly, those who lack English proficiency. This type of crime is especially problematic because it robs families of what they generally have the most value of, this asset, and residents face economic hardships. Homeownership is a vital way to stabilize these families. Since 2019, our office has received over 200 complaints of deed theft. This number is unacceptably high and would be even higher if there wasn't a hold of foreclosures because of the pandemic. Today, as the economic convulsions of the pandemic give way to an almost certain economic downturn, and without the safety net of foreclosure moratorium, vulnerable homeowners will be at greater risk of deed theft schemes. We must ensure that homeowners are protected from these scams. Our office is committed to helping homeowners in distress avoid scams and receive assistance from qualified organizations. For the past decade, our office has managed a homeowner protection program, HOP, which provides free legal services and housing counseling to New Yorkers facing foreclosure. In addition, in 2020, our office launched Protect Our Homes campaign, which is an outreach to homeowners in Brooklyn where we knocked on doors over 3,000 Brooklyn homes and left materials to advise homeowners about how to avoid scams. We continued this program with the New York City Department of HPD, utilizing settlement money to target outreach communities and vulnerable homeowners in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. And we know that our partners in state and city government has worked hard to help constituent homeowners identify resources and avoid falling prey to deed theft scams. Yet homeowners still slip through the cracks, in part due to constant bombardment of these types of solicitations that make it very difficult to discern the good actors from the bad. An expansive non-solicitation zone will help homeowners know that any person approaching them offering a deal for their house is doing so unlawfully if it's a non-solicitation zone. And so sooner there'll be less people reporting it. There are a few downsides to creating a non-solicitation zone. If homeowners want to sell their home, they can seek out a licensed broker. They can try to find a buyer on their own. If a homeowner is in financial distress, they should talk to a housing counseling organization that can help them identify and weigh their options. So continuing to allow homeowners to be constantly harassed and potentially scammed is simply unacceptable. Thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Senator Brisboard.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight and testify. And I want to thank the Office of the Borough President for hosting this hearing tonight. I am State Senator Jabari Brisboard. I represent the 25th State Senate District in Brooklyn, and I'm here to speak tonight in favor of a cease and desist zone for the entire county of Brooklyn and against deed theft. You know, I represent some of the most rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods in Brooklyn, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, and I think it's pretty clear that gentrification is not just a feeling. The data shows, if you look at the results from the 2020 census, that Black people are essentially disappearing from Brooklyn. And if trends continue the way they're going, I'm concerned at what the 2030 census will reveal by 2040, how many Black people will even be left. But you know, to think more about our future, let's go back into our past, because you heard Lacey say earlier that this is not something new. And I'm not sure how many of you remember from your elementary school history class, but the story goes that about 400 years ago, Manhattan Island was purchased by Dutch colonists from Lenape Indians for $24. And even adjusting for inflation, that's not a fair deal. The land was stolen. Today, the story is a little bit different. It's not Dutch colonizers, it's big real estate. It's not indigenous Americans, it's Black Americans. It's not Manhattan Island, it's homes and people's generational wealth. It's not beads and trinkets and blankets, it's confusing legalese, it's confusing forms, it's incessant harassment. And it's not $24, but we're talking about people's homes being sold for significantly under their actual value. One thing that is consistent between 400 years ago and today is the scourge of capitalism, the pursuit of capital, of money, over people's basic human rights, such as being able to stay in their home. This cease and desist zone is our chance to prevent history from repeating itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we will go to Councilmember Nurse.
Hello. Pull this up. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandy Nurse. I'm council member for the 37th Council District. I represent Bushwick, East New York, Cypress Hills, the northern part of Brownsville, and City Line. And my district is home to Brooklyn's only cease and desist zone, covering parts of Cypress Hills and East New York and Community Board 5. I'm here today to state my strong support for expanding the existing cease and desist zone to all of Kings County. CB5 cease and desist zone was born out of necessity. From 2011 to 2015, home sale prices in East New York grew by about 15%. And in the year after the East New York rezoning passed, or when it was announced, home sales grew nearly as much as 13%. So with this price growth came years of well-documented increases in cases of harassment, house flipping, and predatory behavior by the real estate industry. This was a concerted effort by profit-driven real estate companies to buy low and sell high, even to the point of deed theft and preying on vulnerable elders. The unbearable harassment and solicitation that resulted from these price increases demanded more robust action from local and state government, which culminated in the implementation of CB5 zone. And I really want to acknowledge the work of the Coalition for Community Advancement in East New York and Cypress Hills, and the work of State Senator Julia Salazar in really making this happen. So in total, 246 property owners have opted into Community Board 5 cease and desist lists, prohibiting any harassment or real estate solicitation, and some of those homeowners are potentially here today. But in addition to the need for expanding this zone to all of Kings County, I think there are some things that we need to make it more truly effective, and some of those things were mentioned by Lacey Tober today. Strong enforcement is needed behind it. So the real deal, for those of you who don't know, the industry media outlet for the real estate industry reports that we buy houses signs and flyers still hang on light poles, and homeowners who have already submitted their names to the list continue to get calls. And unscrupulous actors and real estate brokerage firms continue to find loopholes to get around this by using unlicensed actors to reach out to homeowners. So we do need stronger enforcement. We need stronger outreach materials by the state in languages that represent the communities that are here. And lastly, I think that many people would echo my sentiment in making this cease and zone for Kings County not an opt-in, but that you would have to opt out. You're putting the burden on a lot of elderly people who aren't even aware of this program, to figure out that it exists and then to opt in. Many people struggle just to figure out basic social services that are available to them, this being an even heavier burden. So I think the cease and desist zone is the least we can do to protect our small homeowners from speculation and aggressive real estate tactics. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify. Thank you for holding additional hearings. Really looking forward to your outcome and to getting more of our community members to testify. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next will be Michelle Nugebauer. She's running late. Okay, that's fine. Then we'll go to Paul Schwartz.
Thank you for holding this hearing. I'm the president-elect of the Brooklyn Board of Realtors. I've been a licensed real estate agent broker since 1984, and I'm here to speak strongly against expanding the cease and desist zone, and actually to suggest eliminating it. Although I understand the concerns of the people here and their constituents, and it is very serious, I'd like to make it clear that I would prefer that this be directed at licensed real estate people, not just speculators and general real estate developers. The alleged harassment comes from such a small sample of homeowners that to punish the entire industry in one of the largest cities in the country would be far more punitive than beneficial to anyone. With more than 1 million homeowners in Brooklyn, I dare say the quote-unquote problem arises from less than 1/100th of 1% of all Brooklyn homeowners, which is quite minuscule. Why even consider expanding the zone to the entire borough when in fact almost all of Brooklyn has no issue with brokerages? I am proud to be a part of a profession whose mission is in fact to get the best price possible for their clients. And we take that very seriously. That's who we are. It is the investors and developers who are out for only their best interests. And I am insulted that brokers and salespeople should be lumped together with the bad actors who are not regulated by the Department of State. We've helped create substantial generational wealth for communities throughout Brooklyn by providing home ownership and the American dream to first-time buyers who have seen the investment in themselves grow tremendously over the decades. I've been on the board of directors for the Brooklyn Board of Realtors for over 20 years. I've never seen a complaint concerning harassment, and I feel confident in saying that our board and all of the local real estate boards would be willing to discuss any of these complaints of harassment with those representing the homeowners before they burden the Department of State with these allegations. We're trying to be fair to everybody, and I'm very serious when I say we have many of the council people here, et cetera. We're open to hearing these complaints and hearing about these complaints before you shut down an entire industry in a borough with over 1 million homeowners. And when it comes to the larger developments, please be aware that New York City approves those projects. The city understands the need to constantly move forward with better housing, stronger neighborhoods, and increased income to its own treasury. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next will be Jessica Franco.
Councilwoman Sandy Nurse. Good evening. My name is Jessica Franco, and sadly enough, these signs are throughout my entire community. It doesn't matter if I'm taking my kids off to school, heading to the supermarket, or just taking a stroll around the park. We are constantly seeing these signs in street posts, stop signs, anywhere and everywhere. My neighbors and I are constantly receiving solicitation, being harassed when folks are coming to knock on our doors. We're getting phone calls, and it's just very uncomfortable and unpleasant. It's not fair. My name is Jessica Franco. Good evening, everyone. I do many things in my community. I am Director for Community Affairs for State Senator Salazar. However, today I'm here as a homeowner, but most importantly as a mother. I have 3 kids, and the reality is that the chances of them becoming homeowners, even if they do everything right, they go to school, they get a career, they get a city job, are very, very slim. The home prices in my community for a 1-family home, they're reaching close to $900,000. For a 2-family home, we're talking about $1.5 million. That is ridiculous. That means that if my 19-year-old daughter finishes college, decides to get married, And even if they have 2 stable incomes, if she chooses to be a teacher, earning $75,000, she won't be able to afford. She won't even qualify to get a mortgage. That is very sad. What are we leaving behind to the next generation? It's not an attack on the real estate industry, and I want to make it very, very clear. You know, I think that I, as the homeowner, let me retract. Let me give you some history so that you can understand, and I'm going to be very brief. I understand what it is to be homeless. When I was a kid, my mom couldn't afford to rent an apartment. We were victims of domestic violence, and so we lived in a family shelter. After that, all my mother could afford was just to rent a room. And finally, as I got older and I got a job, I could finally afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Bushwick. I got married, had kids, and I am a homeowner today because the homeowner where I used to live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Bushwick used to rent the apartment to us for $850. Benjamin Brooks is his name. He is a black homeowner, and he cared more about investing in community than profit. For him, it wasn't about becoming a millionaire. He understood that we were a working class family, and that is what community means to me. And so that's what we pay for. But we're very much aware that had it not been for Mr. Brooks and other good homeowners, there's no way that tenants can afford to ever save and have enough money to become homeowners themselves. So even though there's 1 million homeowners here, who can afford it? Who can afford to live here? Who can afford to buy here? I think that as a homeowner, I should have the right to choose when I want to sell my home, how I want to sell it, and who I want to sell it to. Gentrification is a real issue. I grew up in Bushwick, and I could not afford to buy a property in Bushwick. My husband is a city worker. We had to take money out of his pension and then put all of our pennies together to then qualify for an FHA loan where we were hit with an AMI. And even then, it was considered a jumbo loan because property value was so high. There's so many obstacles and hurdles to becoming a first-time homeowner. It's just simply not fair. So I'm here to please ask you, these signs are not okay in our community. The real estate industry is the only real estate industry that is not and has not caught up to the regulations. It is not fair for someone to constantly go knocking on your door every single day and ask you if you want to sell, or call you 10 times a day, or send you flyers to your home and lie to you and telling you that they're giving the best deal in all cash. It's just simply not cool. And so I would like to ask you to please extend the current zone to all of Brooklyn. Give us a fair chance. Give us an opportunity where we can thrive in our community, right? And whenever and however, whoever chooses to sell, they can. They can walk into any licensed real estate broker and say, look, I want to sell. Last thing I'm going to share today is I am a registered homeowner under the current cease and desist zone. And early in the year, I kept receiving solicitations from a licensed real estate company, Quarkin. They would send me flyers and they would call me. And so I filed a homeowner's complaint form. And to be frank, I did not have much hope. I have to be very honest, right? And filed a homeowner's complaint form, and I didn't think anything of it. This solicitation has been going on for such a long time that I figured, not much is gonna happen. On March, I received an email notification from the state licensing department letting me know that Quarkin had agreed to pay a $1,000 fine and stop the solicitation. So having this cease and desist zone works. It works. And it is something that every homeowner should have the right to register into. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rohan Marshall.
Good afternoon. I just want to make one or two quick statements, which I'm not sure if anybody else has addressed or will address, which is that the governmental entities also have some involvement in this whole process. Some of these homes, they, whether it's the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene or others, they create trumped-up charges and maybe violations. Some homeowners cannot afford to pay, or they find it so high. Then ultimately, homes are sold. That also causes the communities to lose homeowners, and specifically black homeowners. Also, when one calls these governmental entities that are supposed to be working on behalf of homeowners, and there are a lot of hearings that are held, nothing else takes place to really assist homeowners. The phone numbers don't work. You leave a message and nobody comes back, and the properties are sold, and it's a continuation of the same old. In addition, once these homes are purchased, some of them are knocked down, then buildings go up, and it's not been addressed, I don't believe, but to be quite frank, some of these homes, people complain individually, but nothing officially. Some of these homes do not allow black folks to rent or to buy into them. And for whatever reason, that's never addressed. Only certain individuals, certain communities are allowed to live in these buildings. And as you'll mention, the same places, whether it's Brownsville, Bushwick, or Bed-Stuy, you can no longer stay in a place where you grew up. This doesn't seem very right to me. It's backed by the government, right? These people are given loans, right? These entities, what they call them, developments or whatever, right? And there's supposed to be these laws that say, okay, you cannot discriminate. How is it that black folks are not allowed to live in these buildings? You can't live in the same neighborhood where you grew up or where you want to live. And nobody says, okay, in order for you to build that facility, you have to allow some black folks to live there. It doesn't happen. Crazy.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Michelle Nugebauer.
Good evening, representatives of the New York State Department of State, elected officials, community members. My name is Michelle Nugebauer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation. We're a 39-year-old not-for-profit community development organization and settlement house that works out of 21 locations in East New York, providing housing counseling services to tenants, homeowners, particularly homeowners who are in financial distress. We're also proud members of the Coalition for Community Advancement that advocated for the current cease and desist zone in East New York. We have found the zone to be helpful, but it doesn't go far enough. And it doesn't go far enough because large swaths of our community are still left out. So the section north of Jamaica Avenue, commonly referred to as the Highland Boulevard, Highland Park subsection of the neighborhood, Spring Creek, the area south of Linden Boulevard, it's also not included, and there are many small homeowners in that part of East New York, as well as around Starrett City. So I know you know this from the East New York hearings, but it's not, it's not harmless. The aggressive real estate tactics that communities like East New York are facing. Homeowners are bombarded by people knocking on their doors, mailing them things, texting them things, and it gives homeowners the impression that, oh my God, you know, like what is happening? Is this the time to sell? Can I make a big profit? Or how am I ever going to stay in this neighborhood because my taxes keep increasing every time, as Ms. Franco was saying, a home is sold for $900,000 or $1 million. And it fuels the whole cycle of real estate speculation and house flipping that's going on in East New York and working class communities in Brooklyn. Just today, my board president, who lives on Miller Avenue, gave me a copy of a text he received. And I'll just read it to you. Hi, Michael. My name is Rachel, and I work for a Brooklyn house buyer. Are you thinking of or needing help in selling? His address on Miller Avenue. And Michael responds, hi, Rachel. I'm on the state cease and desist list. Please do not attempt to contact me anymore. I will be reporting this attempt. My house is not for sale. And Michael has told me he repeatedly gets that, but you know, like he's a working guy. He's working a lot. He has 4 kids, so he doesn't even have time to fill out the complaint form. I'm going to fill it out for him. But the state really needs to invest in this program. It's a powerful tool for preserving working class neighborhoods. You need staff to publicize the program. You need staff to enforce the protections that are available. So we strongly urge you to extend the cease and desist zone to all Brooklyn, and in particular, all of Community Board 5 in Brooklyn. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Karen Gray.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Gray. I'm an associate broker. This is the second time I'm speaking about the cease and desist. This is a multifaceted situation. I'm with Paul Swartz in what he said. I'm also on the Community Board 8. I'm on the Land Use Committee. This situation is not one size fits all. I wish many times that you guys come and talk to the real estate board so that you can get an understanding of what we do, what legitimate, licensed realtors do, and what they cannot do. We have to abide by the state laws. The people that are supposedly texting, because I'm a homeowner and I get the text, I get the mails. Sure, when the high-end brokers started coming into Brooklyn, this became prevalent. The lady who just spoke about getting the solicitation from one of the high-end brokers and then filing the complaint, yes, this happens because they're a huge conglomerate. But if you go to Mr. and Mrs. Brokerage, they can afford to do that. You go to them and say, I'd like to sell my house, or I'd like to rent, or I'd like to buy. This is how it legitimately works. There's also there has to be some type of cooperation inside the Department of Finance with deed theft. I don't care what anybody tells me. You just cannot steal deeds the way it's happening. And this has been going on for years. The other part of it, this morning I was in a webinar. Do you know that 47% of the purchases in Manhattan are all cash? Let's follow the money. Same thing is happening here in Brooklyn. I do a lot of work for financial institutions, hedge funds, and sometimes the courts. I have to analyze these houses, place values in them, because I'm that other realtor that also does those things. Do you know how many of those homes you see on Lincoln Place, Lefferts Place, Strivers Row in Harlem, I've done for one foreign company. It's foreign money that we have here, owned by an Australian company. They come, they buy it for peanuts, They renovated like Architectural Digest, and it's been rented for $10,000 to $17,000 per month. I have all the evidence of this. What really needs to happen, we need to work with the community board. That's another issue. Because they're about to do a lot of things in Crown, in the Crown Heights, Prospect Heights area, where individuals are going and getting the rezoning done. How is it that rezoning in a neighborhood like Farragut Road, you break down a one-family house and we get 6 floors of 20, 25, 30 units? So how is it that rezoning has become so easy? We have to look at the inside system. This is not just Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. This is a deeper, far-reaching, this is dollars. This is not $5 million. This is $1 billion trust. We now have German companies. We have so many other companies. Then we have EB5. I was just speaking to an attorney in California, where she has people in Asia who have kids going to school here, who have $1 million set aside to buy apartments for their kids. This is not me and you working every day. You have to understand this whole mesh of things that's going on. People need to get active on their community boards. I had to ask my community board land use committee the other day, the way you come to meetings and behave sometimes, I have to ask you, are you in the developer's pockets? We have to look at things. Those little offices that you see come and open in neighborhoods with We Buy Houses Cash, they don't need a license. Those are your developers. Guys, I'm trying to be transparent and real with you. A cease and desist zone for the entire Brooklyn will kill the real estate industry. You're gonna take food out of brokers and real estate salespeople who are trying to pay their bills, just like all of us. We have to sit at the table and talk to each other. There are people taking money under the table. The fight for light at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens. That was a fight. I went to all the meetings because I live around the area. Understand there's more than meets the eye. Those signs that you just showed, they're not by realtors. Those are developers. You heard them in January. I remember seeing your face when we did Zoom. And there was the last person that spoke on that Zoom was a developer. You know what he said? Why are you guys fighting this? Sell us your house. That's being stupid that you don't want us to do it. They know, like they tell me, those developers, we could do things you can't. Let's get smart. Don't do a total cease and desist. You're affecting an industry that has nothing to do with it. It has to go up the chain. There's a chain involved in this. Pay attention and don't just do global things without first meeting with your communities and asking them at the Brooklyn Board of Realtors, NYSAR and NAR, please, no cease and desist. Let's get smart and understand this whole industry and where the money is flowing. Follow the money. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Joyner-Wells. I am an officer of the Willoughby Nostrand Marcy Block Association, and I'm here with another officer, and I'm also here as a small homeowner. Had I known that I would have needed this file of information that I receive on a daily basis regarding the 2 homes that my family owns on the block, I would have collected more. I receive this information almost daily. And I'm a teacher. For 43 years, I've worked for the New York City Department of Ed. And when I looked at this file this morning, I thought about which 2 pieces would I want to share with you. And so the first one is this one. I thought I was getting invited to a party. I was excited. Roses, it's pretty. Inside it tells me that she wants to buy my home for all cash. And just let her know she's a Brooklynite and she doesn't want to displace me, but she wants to buy my house. My house is not for sale. It has never been for sale. There is no for sale sign on my home, and I'm not interested in selling it. The other piece, I've got 3 pieces. This one is a check, supposed check, $10,000 as a deposit for purchasing my home. My home is not for sale. So now we have to deal with the texts, the phone calls, the constant mail, and this represents a small percentage of what I receive. I throw away a lot of it. But my house is not for sale. So now on our block, we now cannot sit outside without someone walking past us and asking us, do we want to sell our house? And one of my neighbors gave them an inordinate amount that he said he would sell it for. And the person said, everybody has a price, and I'm going to find your price. Why do we have to go through this? I'm in favor of cease and desist. I will leave this and I will continue to collect the postcards that come and take a picture of my house, put my house on a postcard, and then mail the postcard back to me and say, I have one here that says my house looks like it's ready for foreclosure. I'm in there, I'm living. New windows, new doors. My house is not for sale. And the fact that we have to deal with this on a daily basis, and the residents of my block have to, I'm not only here for myself, I'm here for the members of my block association, the elderly members who can't come, who don't collect this, who get this mail on a daily basis. It has to stop. I don't want to put anybody out of work. That's not my job. But I want to stop being annoyed by people telling me that they will give me all cash. They don't care what condition my house is in, they will fix it, and they'll find me somewhere else to live. It's not a question. It's not a question, it's not something I want to deal with. I want it to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you'd be willing to leave that evidence with our people in the back, that would help us greatly. Thank you. Next up, we have Assemblymember Zinnerman.
Good evening, everyone. I am the representative of the 56th Assembly District, representing Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights, the 2 most gentrified neighborhoods in, I would say, New York State. And it has been for over a 10-year period. I sat in the front, and I thank you for acknowledging me and nodding for me to come to speak, but I really wanted to spend some time in this room listening to other people's experiences about what they have dealt with over the years with regard to constant harassment from developers, brokers, and I know we wanna split the industry, but I do want to share some personal experiences as well. So I'm not here just because my predecessor, Tremaine Wright, and State Senator Kevin Parker fought valiantly 2 years ago to make sure that this legislation was in place so that we could have a cease and desist zone program and that we could protect our neighborhoods. It is unfortunate, and I appreciate the process, that we have to prove again that this is necessary. Certainly there was enough data during that time for the legislation to pass, and certainly based on the stories that we've heard here tonight, especially what I've experienced over the years, it is absolutely necessary, and I fully support a cease and desist zone, especially for the 56th Assembly District, and that's all I can speak to, so that's what I'm gonna talk about today. Prior to being elected to the New York State Assembly, I worked for the New York City Council and I worked for the New York State Senate. Both of those jobs were in Bedford-Stuyvesant, or covered Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights. And so over the years, and especially in the last 4 years, paperwork certainly is egregious. We've heard people talk about deed theft. We know that 23% of African Americans no longer own homes or live in our district anymore because of a combination of these things. But we got to the point that neighbors had to form committees to take walks around the district, and especially to those neighborhoods or those blocks where there were more seniors, to protect them from the level of harassment is unconscionable. So yes, leaving paperwork on someone's stoop and calling them and sending them very nice postcards that turned out to be solicitations, it's harassment and it's egregious. But I will tell you that there was a rash of push-ins of elderly residents who were being told that their houses were already foreclosed on, that they had been purchased by this individual, and that they were actually there to take pictures, and did so, because this was now their home. And so I'm sure the people who are testifying here in opposition to a cease and desist zone have never operated that way, but this is what we're dealing with. People have lost their sisters, their brothers, their cousins, their dear friends who they grew up with, next door, down the street, one home after another. It has destabilized our community. And then COVID hit. And while everyone else was paying attention to the power of that pause and what it meant for us as society to reflect on our personal and our communal practices, people were still aggressively trying to buy people's homes and take advantage of that state. So I've asked the Secretary of State, how much paperwork do we need to deliver to you? How many stories do we need to tell in order for this to be expanded? For the 56. I brought my pen today just for you. How many? As I can call her Joanne because I've known her for a long time. As she stated, there are so many people who have, tons of paper, but they've thrown it out over the years. Some of them are no longer with us. Some of them can't come here. Two of our biggest supporters, the Crown Heights North Association, they're having their community board meeting tonight, so they're not here. The Brownstones of Bedford Stuyvesant are another group who have helped collect this data over the years. So I ask that as you consider this, that you don't just look at the paper, right? But that you listen to stories. You look at the data and you use that to make the decision, because the 56th Assembly District needs you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Benjamin, is Besh?
My name is Benjamin Ellis. I'm a longtime Brooklyn resident and homeowner, and I'm here to speak out against the solicitation order. I manage agents for a living. I know that makes me the bad guy in the room, but I would like to just bring out some things that I've seen. I do think that we have some serious problems out there with deed theft and with the problems that have been illustrated here. I don't think that they should be taken lightly. But I'm noticing there's a lot of conflation between the real estate agent community and the people that are leaving signs as the ones that you showed us earlier, which are predatory lenders and predatory developers that are not acting as licensed real estate agents. They are acting as entities, financial institutions, big players that are going after and hitting you with reverse mortgages and putting your properties at risk. That is a different thing than a licensed real estate agent. Just to give you some basic math on what agents do and who we are, there are 55,000 brokers in New York City right now. The median income is less than $100,000. These are not the people that are paying all cash. They're not. They don't have the means to do it. They're designed to try to get you information about your property. If you don't like it, you may recycle it. The letters that my predecessor here showed in the little invitation to a party card. That's not a licensed real estate agent sending it. I don't think that we have a real understanding about who the villain is, right? The licensed real estate agent may be providing you with a piece of information saying your house is worth such and such an amount, and would you like to sell? It is your choice not to sell. It's actually your choice not to pay attention to the sign in your community, but I don't think you should be suffering through that either, personally. But New York City real estate agents and real estate transactions generally make up an enormous tax base and tax revenue for the city of New York, which provides municipal services. There is some fault with the state government that does not allocate those funds correctly to the right communities, and that should be addressed, but not necessarily going after the median income of less than $100,000 in many of our communities. A vast majority of the agents are residents in the communities in which they serve, and they do not harass. They often are just trying to squeak by their own life. This occupation also does not require a college degree, which means it's open to everyone. It also means a lot of people can come into the business that probably ought not to be there. However, it affords an enormous amount of people and a lucrative career potential that could bring them out of poverty. The occupation also employs an enormous number of women, something we need more of in our economies. The idea that we would go after a strong tax base because we are conflating this with a different actor is kind of foolish. It's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. I do think that there needs to be something to be done. But I can tell you, I manage 160 agents. And going after this industry, a vast majority of whom are not making the money that is necessary to purchase these homes in cash, whether you're talking about $100,000 or $1 million, is very, very foolish. Because you're going to upend an entire tax base for the city and state of New York. The real issue is where that tax revenue is going to go and how you're going to create the enforcement of the actual players who are preying on these communities. I am all in support of retaining communities and their residents. I think it's immensely important, but I don't think that people actually are understanding who the actual violators are. None of the examples I've seen here today are examples of things that my agents are mailing. These are unlicensed actors acting on behalf of either predatory lending institutions or predatory developers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have, is there a May?
Good evening. My name is May Vutrapong Vatana, Councilmember Chiosei's Budget and Policy Director. Tonight, I am testifying on behalf of Councilmember Chiosei, Councilmember for the 36th District, which encompasses the neighborhoods, the rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods of Bedford-Stuyvesant and North Crown Heights. I am here today to express Councilmember Osei's support to make all of Brooklyn a cease and desist zone. There is a housing and gentrification crisis in Brooklyn, especially in the neighborhoods of Bed-Stuy and North Crown Heights. These two neighborhoods are experiencing rapid gentrification, and because of this, our homeowners, predominantly Black and brown working class homeowners who have lived in these neighborhoods and communities for decades, are being targeted by predatory landlords and real estate companies who shamelessly place profit over people. Our Black and brown homeowners and our senior homeowners get flooded with and harassed by solicitation through calls and flyers from realtors who often use deceptive and intimidating practices to get the vulnerable to sell their homes against their best interest. Our office gets hundreds upon hundreds of calls from homeowners in the 36th District reporting these predatory calls from realtors and reporting pervasive issues of deed theft. We cannot let more hardworking homeowners in this district lose their homes. Homes that they have lived in for decades and are foundational to generational wealth, especially for the Black families in Central Brooklyn. As Senator Jabari Brisboard testified earlier today, there is a huge flight of Black New Yorkers leaving Bed-Stuy and North Crown Heights. And all of this is not coincidental. It is intentional, systemic policies that are rooted in racism and anti-Blackness and that puts profit over human lives. And the state has the responsibility to mitigate this crisis that we are in. This District 36 and all of Brooklyn needs a cease and desist zone now. In the face of this targeted assault on our vulnerable, we need to protect our homeowners, especially our Black and brown homeowners and our senior homeowners who have made this borough their home, but also have built the fabric of what makes Brooklyn great. And we need to do this right. As our elected colleagues and community members have testified earlier, we need an opt-out program and not an opt-in program. We need to ensure that as many homeowners are protected in this process. And to the realtors and developers in this room today, what a cease and desist zone will do is that it will not only protect homeowners, but it gives power back into the homeowners' hands, giving them the choice to sell their homes if they wish to, or to remain in their rightful property. People should have the informed consent and the free will to engage in a business or a sale, not one that is coerced from them through harassment and intimidation practices. On behalf of Councilmember Chi Osei of the 36th District, I urge the state to make all of Brooklyn a cease and desist zone. This isn't about business or profits. It's about human rights. It's about universal justice, and it's about the unshakable sanctity of the home and the vibrant fabric of what makes the Brooklyn community. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Laura Mckenna.
Thank you. My name is Laura Mckenna. I am from Neighborhood Housing Services of Brooklyn, also known as NHS Brooklyn. We're a HUD-certified housing organization that has been working in East Flatbush, now also an office in Canarsie and across Brooklyn for 40 years. We do foreclosure, intervention, tenant counseling, landlord training, first-time home buying. I've been with them for 7 years. The reason that I decided to, when I came here, I did not think I was going to speak, but I wanted to share with you my experience as the marketing manager for this organization because I see all the data on the people who come to our organization for assistance. I see the demographics on those people. I have gone to the library and collected information on where houses have gone into foreclosure. I can tell you what kinds of houses go into foreclosure, and I can tell you something about who those people are. What we have seen in the past few years is primarily, I'll give you 3 examples of the kinds of folks who come to see us. That speaks to the cease and desist zone. There are people who want to sell their house. These people, once they try to go out and sell their home, are really entering into a situation where there are a lot of unscrupulous actors. There are a lot of people who are really looking to get some money out of the sale of this house. And yes, they are working to get the best deal possible, but they also want to move on to the next deal. So that causes, it's not a conflict of interest. I was in sales. I probably would do the same thing if I were a real estate agent. You know, what prices are people going to tolerate to sell this house for? But we saw it was so prevalent during COVID that these folks did not know how to sell a house. They didn't know the first thing about the process. They didn't know about unscrupulous actors. They didn't know what to look for, how to know the value of their home, to do comparables and so forth, that we actually had rather than a first-time home buyer seminar, which we do twice a month, and last year we had 6,000 people who came through our program. We did a first-time home seller program, and we had 300 people who signed up. because they were like lambs to the slaughter. If you could have seen the questions these people were asking, they were so basic that you could see that someone who knew a lot more about selling a home could very easily take advantage of them. Okay, but those are people who want to sell their home. Then the next group of people are those, and some of them have spoken tonight, they don't want to sell their home. We've seen those people too. We've seen a lot of those kinds of people who do not want to sell their home, and they really seriously are being harassed. Harassed to the point where we actually created placards for people to put in the windows and the doors of their homes that say, "My house is not for sale," to stop people from coming up to their homes, leaving flyers, leaving mail, sending things. They can't stop the phone calls, but they can do that much, right? Is to stop people who are actually going to come up to their homes. The last group of people, and this speaks to my own personal family's history, is people who are financially strapped and whose homes go into foreclosure. And this is a difficult thing to talk about. You can see there's such shame around not being able to pay your bills because something has happened. Those people, they may see someone who comes to them as sent from God to help them. They may see them as people who are going to help them quietly with cash, and then they'll be able to move out of state someplace. That happens very quickly. And these people really need to understand that there are other resources that are available for them. There are organizations like ours. Our staff is HUD certified. They go through rigorous training. We have one of only 7 counselors in the state who know how to counsel on reverse mortgage, because that's a snake pit. But the point is that when someone is strapped, and many of these folks are strapped, this is the way that they're going to be able to hold on to their home, to be able to pass it on to their kids. And if they run into sickness, if they lose a spouse, if they don't connect to the right information, and most seniors don't connect to that information. We take advantage of the fact that, we're on our phones all the time, and we get texts and so forth. Seniors, I talk to seniors every day. They don't have email. They may not even have a cell phone. They may not text. Here comes this nice person to their door saying they want to buy their house, and they'll give them cash for more money than they thought they would ever have in their life. They don't know anything about comparables. That's the kind of person that we are really worried about at NHS Brooklyn, that we work to help. And to the extent that the people in this room can let people in their neighborhoods, people at community gatherings know that there are trusted counselors that you can talk to who have no skin in the game, who will help you to figure out a way to keep your house, if that's what you want to do, that's really what needs to happen. But in the meantime, a cease and desist zone is appropriate because there is nobody looking out for the most vulnerable people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alexa Sloan.
Hello, good evening. My name is Alexa Sloan. I am an organizer with the Coalition for Community Advancement, which is a coalition of homeowners, tenants, community-based organizations, and houses of worship in East New York, Brooklyn. Our coalition was very successful 2 years ago in establishing a cease and desist zone, the only cease and desist zone in Brooklyn. And this came about as the result of a lot of work, too much work. We attended block parties, we door knocked, we collected over 500 surveys documenting, hearing from residents that they had been approached on average at least 2 times a week with solicitations to, trying to buy their home. And then back, the last time that we saw you all was right before the pandemic in 2020. And that day, the day of the hearing, we heard from a lot of East New Yorkers who detailed very specific examples of how the types of aggressive speculation that they were experiencing. So, for example, we heard from a woman whose elderly mother, who's suffered from dementia, was led away from her stoop by a developer to his real estate office, where he convinced her to sign over her deed and bought her house out from under her family for $50,000, and then bought and resold the house within 4 months for $1.2 million. We also heard from a senior who one afternoon, she had her front door unlocked. A real estate agent entered her home, came into her living room, and attempted to convince her that she had already begun the paperwork to sell her home, and attempted to take her home. We also heard from a homeowner who was also a nurse practitioner in East New York, who part of her, as a nurse practitioner, she would visit patients in their home, many of which were seniors who lived alone, and were receiving so many phone calls from real estate that they stopped picking up the phone. So they were, as a result of not picking up the phone because of all these phone calls, they were further isolating themselves from family, which was just terrible to hear. And so that was back in 2020. In 2021, recently there was a Washington Post article that talked about the high percentage of investors purchasing homes throughout the country, and in Brooklyn. So in 2021, 29% of homes in Bedford-Stuyvesant were purchased by investors. In Bushwick, 29% of homes were purchased by investors. In Brownsville, a quarter of homes were purchased by investors. In Prospect Lefferts Gardens, 28% of homes were purchased by investors. So these are people that are not going to live in those homes. They're looking to make a profit, and it is dramatically changing what Brooklyn looks like, and the history, the legacy of these communities. And so investors and developers are targeting Black and brown small homeowners, buying up properties, kicking out tenants, pricing out family home buyers, and perpetuating the racial wealth gap. And in terms of the response from what we've heard tonight from real estate, saying that this is not the practices that they're doing, if this isn't the practices that you're doing, if you're not aggressively phone calling people, if you're not flyering, if you're not leaving up the signs, then you have nothing to worry about, because you're not going to be receiving these fines. You're not going to be receiving these penalties. This is specifically for people that are going after aggressively calling and leaving flyers and putting up these signs. So we're all in it together. This is specifically a protection that is for people that are phone calling, leaving flyers in these nasty ways that are like flowers and birthday cakes and all these things. That's not your practice, and don't worry about it. And so New York Department of State, you all need to act, right? We need the cease and desist zone. We need more action. We need a cease and desist zone for all of Brooklyn, and we need an opt-out option. And we need it now more than ever. We cannot afford to lose our small homeowners in East New York. They are the anchors of affordability. They create block associations, they are politically involved, and they provide affordable rents. So we need the zone more than ever. And please do check out that Washington Post article where you can see how investors are targeting many of our Black communities here in the United States. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Next we have Quicy Cunningham. I apologize if I... Quicy.
Hello, everyone. So pretty much what I would like to say is a lot of what's going on here and what I've seen today is pretty much coming from a lot of investors. The information that we're seeing is coming from a lot of investors as far as the signs on the posts, the invitation signs. Those are pretty much investors. Now, if this cease and desist does go into effect, if we think it's bad now, I can see it getting extremely worse. How do you govern these investors that, probably mail out or call in on a burner phone? How do we govern those investors from soliciting these homeowners? Do we prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, which I pretty much doubt it. Right now, we have criminals on the streets that are committing crimes, and the judges are letting them out with the different laws we have in effect. So are we going to spend money and resources now trying to convict or arrest investors? I don't see happening. I can pretty much give stories, personal stories going into some of these homes that I can tell where all flyers pretty much helped a lot of these homeowners. Have a homeowner on Remsen Avenue, home recently sold last year, received an offer from an investor for $425,000. We was able to sell that property for $769,000. If you guys would like this information verified, I can definitely do so if the client agrees to, give the information. Also have another client right now. Investor went to their property and, solicited the property for sale, was able to put $5,000 down on contract, and currently that client is going to court now to try to get out of a $5,000 contract. The investor registered the contract for sale for $5,000. So we need to take a broader look at this problem. We should not bunch everyone in, realtors with the investors, because they're the ones. 99% of what I've heard today is pretty much these investors. We're governed by different rules by the state. So we can get fines. When we mail material, we have to have our information on it, which you don't with these investors. So a lot of these stories that I'm giving now, I can definitely, if you guys would like to verify it, I can verify it. For $5,000, this person's now fighting to get out of a contract. So this is a much, much, much bigger problem than what we're hearing here. So all due respect to, the signs that we're, the signs that we're seeing on the streets, it disgusts me a lot of times when I'm driving and I'm seeing these signs, especially in the neighborhoods that I am in, these black and brown neighborhoods, trying to help these clients like, hey, look, do not sell your home. Every house that I go to, I'm seeing a all cash sign. Do you want to sell your home for all cash? Obviously, these cash dealers investors are not giving what a property should be worth. So I think we really need to take a strong look at, what we're doing here and, and see how we can help move this thing forward in a positive way. Us lumping investors and realtors that's in these homes, trying to assist these homeowners is not the way to go. I can see this getting worse if this is something that is enacted, that if it does go into effect. Because now how do you control a burner phone? Someone that's going to change. Some of these signs doesn't even have addresses or numbers, or not numbers, I'm sorry, people that you can call and, reach to prosecute. So how will we go ahead and prosecute these people that are still going to be mailing out there, to me, in a much rampant way? So I'm totally against it, and it's something we really need to think about before we make any sudden moves. That's it.
Thank you. Just say.
Maria Galema, sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Galena. I am a real estate agent. I decided to come here because I just started this profession because I lost my job in 2018. So I can honestly say since the time that I lost my job, I've always been very helpful with the public. So my past history has been in finance. I've had good rapport with all my clients. So one of the things that I want you to know is that we as real estate agents do want to really truly help the homeowner. Homeowners are confused. They don't know what sometimes that they're facing. Sometimes they don't want to deal with buyers because of the aggression. So they hire agents to make sure that they're getting the best deal. And luckily we have information and platforms that help us to compare properties that are going up for sale in their neighborhood, okay? I am a born Brooklynite, and I've seen a lot of changes through my years. And I can understand the anger and the frustration when you're saying you can't pay your bills. And I can understand how your neighborhoods are changing. That's something out of our control. So by putting this order in place, it's not gonna help anything, because all I keep hearing is the councilmen, the senators, representatives of agencies and groups keep mentioning the fact that there are investors, and they are coming from out of country. Like, I'm gonna point to your point, you really have to go to your community board. If you don't like what's going on, visit your community board, okay? You can get investors, I don't know, 20 people, depending on, what their background is. Could be Asian, could be European, could be South American. 20 of them could get together, a couple of $100,000 here and there, and they form a corporation, and there you go. So they just need the homeowner to agree with it. In reference to the changes in the neighborhood, there's something that we can't control. People are getting older, people are passing, people are looking for better, and they're allowed to do that. They are, okay? I'm a homeowner myself. My parents were immigrants. Guess what? I'm gonna be hitting retirement soon. You know what my first question is? Now these days, am I gonna be able to afford to keep my own home? And I don't even come from a black and brown community. So it doesn't matter what community you come from. From what I'm hearing here, it is a social and an economic issue. Seriously. So this is not the forum for that. This issue right now is to put in place, do we want this order where there's no mailings, no communication, no door knocking, we can't even make phone calls. If I'm not rich, are we allowed to make phone calls? We're not allowed to make phone calls because real estate agents have to abide and ethically behave under the New York State law. So you're getting confused between a real estate agent and an investor. Now this is not gonna go away because you know what? When we get out of here and you go back to your neighborhoods, look at the corners. Look at the locks. That's not us. It is not us. You got the wrong people. And you know what you're going to do? You're gonna hurt the small real estate agents that are just trying to really help the community, because when we see wrong, we get upset too, okay? We also have to make a living. And all these agencies that come up here to help the other neighborhoods, you're funded by the city as well. I'm not funded by the city. So I applaud you. You're very welcome. So it's very disappointing to hear this because you have two sides of the story. You have a social and an economic issue, which should not be put here. We're talking about the order itself. It's going to put a whole industry of real estate agents that are honest and willing and who take training on an every 2-year basis. We have to pay for our licenses. We have to make sure we're trained. We have to report to our brokers. We have to make sure that we as individuals and real estate agents are properly behaving ourselves with the public. So yes, this is an important issue for the real estate agents. So your order doesn't fit in with our moldy. You got the wrong people. And I do have to apologize for those who do receive the emails. I get tons of them. You have a choice. God bless America, we all have a choice. You can delete them, you can shred them, you can do whatever you want with them. You can even report them to the New York State, right, Rich? So your agencies are there to help the public, and your agencies are there to help your community. You have someplace to go. We don't. All right? I thank you very much for your time. I hope you can consider it not passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruth McDonald, please. Oh, sorry. McDowell.
Hi, everyone. We do have a choice. You have a choice to live in Brooklyn. You have a choice to live anywhere you like to live without being harassed, without someone calling you when your dying mother that's dying has to answer the phone because people want to buy her home. She's not thinking about selling her home. She's dying. She's thinking about living. How would you like if someone called you while you were dying? Tell me, how would you feel? Tell me, please. I want to hear how would you feel. If you were, yeah, because you said that has nothing to do with what's going on socially, economically. This is not the forum for that. It needs to be a deceased order in Brooklyn, all of Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised in Brooklyn, okay? Went to St. John Catholic School in Brooklyn, 82 Lewis Avenue. Everyone has a choice. Don't harass people for money. Money is not over people. Never will be. Never. If you fell down today, I will pick you up and help you. That's what we're supposed to do as people. Aren't we all in here people? Aren't we all? Anyone in here is not human? Don't we all have feelings? Don't we all have feelings? Ask investors. Go get them. I ask them. Go get them. I'm quite sure none of you would like to be displaced from anywhere. Your friends have to leave because they can't afford it. But to some people, it's a joke. Really? And not educated. I went to LIU. I was a registered nurse. A lot of us are educated. Everybody's not stupid. And money will never be over people. So yes, please give us this deceased order. So other people can't come into Brooklyn and take over Brooklyn, no matter what they look like, no matter what their size is, no matter their economic situation. Yeah, some people want to sell their homes. Give them that choice if they want to, not be forced into it. Anyone in here want to be forced to do anything you don't want to do? Anybody? Who wants to be forced to do something they don't want to do? Raise your hand, let me see you. I didn't think so. So please, put a stop to it. Because we all gonna get old one day. If we live long enough. You want anybody taking anything from you when you're old? When you can't see? When you can't walk or talk? When can't nobody feed? You can't feed yourself no more? You want anybody taking your money or your home that you work hard for your family? Huh? Anybody? Anybody in here want an illness and we got the cure but won't give it to them? Ever been in ICU or CCU? Go check it out. See if it's a good feeling being hooked up to a machine and you can't breathe. Then come back and talk to me. That's what it feels like when somebody's trying to take your home. Money is not everything. One day, some people will get it. And if it's the investors, what goes around comes around. Your day will come. Thank you.
So those are all the speakers we have who have signed up. If anybody else would like to speak, you're more than welcome. So with it still being before 8 o'clock, we'll take a recess and see if anybody else shows up to testify. I thank everybody for coming. If you have evidence you would be willing to share with us, there's a box in the back where we will be collecting that. Additionally, if you receive things in the future and you'd like to share them with us, you can email them to Brooklyn cease and desist at dos.ny.gov, and we can add that to the record. On our website, dos.ny.gov, there is a questionnaire you can fill out, which would also is another way that we are gathering evidence. So once again, thank you all for coming.
Person that said she's on the right. Yeah, she's on 59.
Hi.
Thank you. It's, I know you're not stupid.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have one more speaker. Virginia Bechtold? Bechtold, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Hi, everybody. My name is Virginia Bechtold. I'm a board member of the Prospect Lefferts Gardens Neighborhood Association. We've been in existence because of real estate shenanigans back in the 60s and 70s. So this seems to be coming like full circle. I'm testifying as a tenant. Like, I long ago gave up, the pipe dream of trying to buy a property in my neighborhood that I've lived in for 10 years because, 28% of the properties sold are to investors. I see them on Instagram, #flip, #investment, gutting, and, some are end buyers who seem to, have gotten in a little under market value. I grew up on Long Island. We are currently cleaning out the house that I grew up in and, embroiled in another real estate, tomfoolery out there too. Just like piles of business cards, piles of flyers. So I can only imagine what my neighbors in Brooklyn are going through. I'd hope that more of them would show up to testify. I'm still a little and I wrote to you, I don't understand why there wasn't a virtual testimony option here because we're still in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of my neighbors are elderly, maybe don't want to drag themselves up from Flatbush on a Thursday night. So I hear a lot of same language that we just heard and are hearing right now with the rent guidelines board, historic, highest since the 90s, rent hikes and rent stabilization units, mom and pop landlords, mom and pop realtors, maybe the people who testified here tonight aren't, the bad eggs, but hit dogs holler. And if you are up here being like, my livelihood, well, housing is a human right, in my opinion, and a lot of others' opinions. So you are buying and selling and trading and making a lot of money off of people's human right. And so, yeah, I'm here as a tenant. I know there is a lot of pitting tenants and homeowners against each other, and I think that's BS. I've lived in the neighborhood for 10 years. A lot of my neighbors have had to move out, or they are now, left in the only single family house on the block with, developments encroaching them on all sides. And they're kind of ass out of luck because the prices they're now being offered for their homes that they've lived in for 30 and 40 years don't, they wouldn't be able to afford to buy in the neighborhood and to age gracefully in place. So that's why I'm here. I feel like renters and homeowners, tenants, whoever, our destinies are all bound up in, each other's. And all I see is the last 10 years, politicians, elected officials who have been in, office for as long as gentrification has really rooted in Brooklyn, saying, oh, no, don't look at us over here taking money from developers and realtors and Rebney and whoever. Look over there, these new white people coming in, they're your problem. So it sows distrust. It sows, distrust, ill will. And so we're all divided, and what happens, more developers come in, rezonings happen, nobody knows which way is up, and you end up having 6-story buildings on side streets, in a row of houses that are built poorly. It's a mess, and the housing crisis extends to homeowners, it extends to tenants. We're all fighting, over the same borough that we've all either grown up in or come to love living in. And yeah, it's all connected. Good cause eviction failed because mom and pop landlords. Well, good cause eviction, you know, that legislation wouldn't apply to mom and pop landlords. And I'm sure the mom and pop realtors who, you know, are here kind of fear mongering about their careers, I'm sure they'll be fine too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. That was our last speaker. Have a good night. Safe trip home. Thank you.